Today's segment of Sound Balming is brought to you by Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care. I cannot express to you how much we love their products. Although we use them all year, as the weather gets colder, we need these products even more. The dreaded drop in temperature, the dryness, the itchiness, and the unnecessary flakiness is inevitable. Shea butter from Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Body Care is the only thing that works for my skin and hair needs. Not only do these products cure my dry skin, the whipped butter goes on smoothly and doesn't leave that uncomfortably thick, sticky residue. Bonus? It smells absolutely amazing. There are so many different scents to choose from too. Not only do they carry skincare products, there are products for authentic living, face, shower, hair and beard, spritzers and perfumes, and bath products. Let me tell you, we cannot even keep the stuff in the studio. The entire production team, as well as all our children, use Jimmy and Mary's product. Jimmy and Mary's take pride in creating quality, handcrafted products from simple ingredients for the entire family. Their products are made for all skin types and are 100% handmade, 100% vegan, and 100% cruelty-free. Skincare is important. Moisture is key, and keeping our skin and hair hydrated is essential. I cannot emphasize how much we trust Jimmy and Mary's for all of our skincare needs. Hurry on up to jimmyandmarys.com and check out their products. Did I mention service is fast and efficient too? Don't forget to mention that you heard about Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare on Sound Balming. Use the discount code SOUNDBALM20 to get 15% off. That's SOUNDBALM20 for 15% off at Jimmy and Mary's Authentic Skincare.
Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bombs. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Ladies and gentlemen, the star of the show,
Lamar Darnell Shields.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever the time of the day is. Well, welcome to my show. I'm Dr. Lamar Darnell Shields, the creator of Sound Bombing. And my goal with this show is to introduce you to people with ideas that will help you unlock your full potential. Like my last guest, Matt Jevitt. Matt Jevitt stepped out on faith and decided to leave his company, his organization. He was a top seller in his business and decided that he and his partner wanted to travel all over the world. And I love the lessons that Matt shared with my listeners about stepping out on faith and doing what your heart says. Can you believe it? Wow, we are here. It's crazy to be saying this because it all went by so damn fast. Or actually, for some of us, it did not. But 2021 is truly upon us. And with the new year comes potential for new life. Have you considered what this year could bring to you, or what you could become, or how you become? And if you know me at all, you'd likely be aware that I hate New Year's resolutions. Real change rarely comes to those who are vague and impractical about their future. I'm a huge fan of the quote in Tim Ferriss's recent book, Tribe of Mentors, when he says, life punishes the vague wish and rewards the specific ask. When we ask ourselves the right questions, We discover new worlds within ourselves. And that's why my next guest is here to talk about the amazing thing that she's doing across the country. Who am I talking about? Juliette Nelson, who is a thought leader, entrepreneur, and published author who is passionate about empowering people to achieve the highest standards of their purpose. She is the founder and CEO of JUNURI, a company that equips students, professionals, and business owners with the tools, resources to be successful in the different areas of their lives. In November of 2019, Juliette authored and published Sharing My Lens, the college experience in which she shares some of the gems that proved to be valuable in achieving and engaging academic experience throughout college. She also launched a wooden eyewear collection, NURILENS, that serves as a value add for students and professionals that spend long hours in front of their computer screens. And we all know what that's like, because my kids, and I'm sure your kids, and all the students around the country are zoomed out. Eyes are probably jacked up right now. So I'm so glad she created a new company to help support these young and old people. Given her experiences, she is intentional about being an agent of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement to the world around her. I would like to welcome Juliette Nelson to the show. Sak passe, sister. Sak passe. What's happening?
Makbule, how are you?
Yeah. You didn't know I knew about your Haitian roots, sister.
You really dug up the deets on me, didn't you?
Come on, let me tell you, Haiti is one of the countries that I love.
Hello, somebody.
Not just because of my man who was a part of the group called the Fugees when he received his award and he wrapped himself in that Haitian flag, not because it's next to the Dominican Republic, but it is because of the history of the Haitian Revolution that you all have fought for your independence. I worked and taking kids there. So, I'm always excited when my Haitian brothers and sisters decide to hang out with me in the bomb shelter. Of course, I'm going to do my homework. Of course.
I love it.
Well, welcome to Sound Bombing. And because of COVID, you cannot be in the studio. But thanks for hanging out with me today. Let my listeners know, as you said, your grandparents call you Juliette. Let them know where you are calling from and how are you doing?
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me on the show. I am calling from the DC metropolitan area in Maryland, about 20 to 30 minutes out from DC. I am originally from New York. And yes, my name is Juliette. You actually got it spot on. My name is French, not Italian. So usually people call me, of course, the American way, Juliette. But there are very few people who call me Juliette. So I do appreciate that.
Hey, let me just tell you, I love Haiti. I got a chance to take kids, Juliette, to Haiti, or Haiti, as we say in Spanish. So as we say in Spanish, I got a chance to take a group of kids there because we wanted them to understand what Haitians did for African Americans in this country. But beyond that, we took them over there to learn about the culture, the history. We were part of a delegation of young people learning about cacao. We partnered with a company in Maryland called Taharka Brothers, where they got their cacao from farmers in Haiti. Now, we're not talking about Nestle, because you know what Nestle is doing to your country. We're talking about home,
real stuff.
We're talking about mom and papa, big whatever you call them in Haiti, who has these farms. And I fell in love with the country. We flew into Dominican Republic, and then we took the bus on over because I wanted the kids, and my daughter included, I wanted them to see how the Dominicans were treating Haitians and the things that were going on. Just two amazing countries side by side, very similar roots, separated by culture, separated by the melanin in their skin. And you know what I'm talking about. Separated by racism, but we created this theme called the Big Payback. And I got a chance to meet one of your presidents. You all know him, Sweet Mickey, the musician. See, I did my work, girl. I ain't playing around.
We all know him.
Did my work. And so I just want to thank you for hanging out with me today. We're going to have a good time. I got tons of questions. I have a teenager, so we're going to talk about that. But before I dive in some of the questions, I also discovered, before we go a little deep, that you got a little voice there. You work with the choir. When I was reading about you, the kids choir, your choir director. Is
Where
that
are you
true?
finding this information? Yes. If we were not in COVID, I would be working with my army of, I think it's about 60, it was 60 kids when the world was together, actually around this time. But yes, I am a choir director. I grew up singing in church. And when I was 15 and a half, I started with a group of 15 kids. And it was interesting because I think that's where the journey of me discovering my purpose started. But all to say that group of 15 grew to almost like 75, 80 kids, if not more. I went to work in South Korea as an English teacher, also running away from having to be a choir director because I was basically a kid directing kids. And then when I got there, some way, somehow my resume spilled. And they were like, oh, well, we were praying for God to send us a choir director. And I'm looking at them like, are you asking me? Or are you telling me? So I ended up working with a small group of children there. And that was fun because they spoke Korean, I spoke English. So I would teach them music in Korean and English. So we kind of had like a nice, healthy middle ground. And then when I came back to the States, I ended up working with a group of 100 strong. And I've also worked with youth choirs, church choirs with the adults, which is actually a very fun experience. And I now have my children's choir here in Maryland. So yeah, I have a little bit of experience.
I'm not gonna push you. I hear the little, I know what Black folks are in the church. They be like,
Right.
don't blame it on COVID. Don't blame it on COVID. I'm not gonna push you. The reason why I want to start with that, because I wanted my listeners to know, Juliette, that you started very young with pursuing your purpose and your passion. And we are saying goodbye to 2020, but not, we're walking into 2021 with our heads high and our shoulders up, but we're also dealing with some of the challenges already that we're seeing. At the end of the day, the question that we ask ourselves determine the type of people that we will become. An elder once told me that. Juliette, do you agree with that statement? And if so, what questions are you continually asking yourself in this time during this pandemic, as we quite often question our purpose, our goals, and where we're supposed to be in life?
I completely agree. Questions I ask myself, I will tell you this, 2020 was interesting for me because that was, when 2020 started, I remembered I was actually going through a very challenging time. And so while the new decade was starting for everybody and everybody's going through, what the past 10 years for them had been, I just felt stuck. And so 2020 was actually that time where it's like, okay, I need to redefine who I am. And it was the perfect time because there's this quick dynamic shift in environments, right? And relationships and how we interact with people. So I think one of the big questions I kept asking myself is, who are you? Who are you today, right? Because we change a lot. And I think the pandemic, the economic turmoil, the social turmoil, the political turmoil, it's all showed us that, right? People that we thought we knew, the next day, it could just so happen that we find out that they think a different way or they have a different perception, and it completely changes how we feel about them. And so for me, one of the biggest questions I ask myself every day is, who are you and who do you want to be today? And based on who you were tomorrow, how are you going to continue moving forward? And based on that, how does that factor into your purpose and who God called you to be? And for those who believe in a different higher power, how does that focus on who you're meant to be on this earth? And then you just keep it moving, and eventually you start to evolve. You start to heal, you start to evolve, and you start to grow into that person. You start to learn with ways to cope, and it's not an easy journey, but you start to learn, and of course, some things might work better than others, but that's kind of how you end up in this phase of, as Michelle Obama called it, becoming. So yeah.
So when as you were going through the process of redefining yourself, let's just say in 2020 or 2019 or 2018 or 2020, what self-limiting beliefs did you have to overcome in order for you to then start to redefining yourself and then reevaluating who you are and then giving yourself a new definition of your purpose and your passion?
I think the biggest one, and it's crazy, the biggest one was that I needed other people to validate how I felt and who I was. I guess, and I've never been a person to really care what everybody has to say.
I kind of
But
picked up on that on all the interviews and meetings that I saw.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So really, I've been a person. I try to move to the beat of my own drum. It just allows me to be accountable for myself and not be upset when if something goes wrong or doesn't go my way, and I'm blaming someone else for my behaviors. However, of course, you know, I keep a small circle, and there were times that the influence of those people, some of the people closest to me, those are the ones I needed the validation from. And so there are times you might bring people close to you that are not even able to validate you because they're struggling to validate themselves, right? And so I found myself just in different interactions where I was really looking for people that were closer, people in my network that were a little closer to validate who I was, my character, to validate how I felt. If I felt that I was in an unsafe space, it was like I needed them to validate that I was in an unsafe space without me just validating it myself. So that was one of the biggest self-limiting beliefs that I had to overcome in 2020, where it was like, if I perceive something as unfair, then it is unfair. Everyone doesn't have to believe it, but it's enough for me, right? And it also helped me to hold myself accountable for myself, more accountable. So that was one of the biggest self-limiting beliefs. I think the other one was, so I'm a workaholic. I work a lot. And I realized that one of those self-limiting beliefs was that I was never doing enough. And it wasn't until I think around Christmas, that I'd gone to see my parents, Christmas 2019. And I was cleaning up my room and going through things. And I'm an INFJ on Myers-Briggs, so I love order. So I'm always shredding things and going through things and making sure that they're organized. But I was looking through some of my archives, and I'm looking at all the notes I would take in high school, and even middle school and college, look at some of the papers I'd printed out and handed in. And I'm looking through even my planners and all the things I had going on. And I realized at that moment, at 29, that I worked so hard since I was a kid. I worked so very hard, but for so long, I just thought that I always needed to work harder. Like it was never enough.
And where does that come from? I know about the Haitian people, not only just the historical revolution after the earthquake, we ended up there. Mm-hmm. What role does your culture, your Haitian culture and roots play in this hard work? Again, I study Wyclef just like you. His very religious background. His father was a minister. I mean, he is a minister in a certain rate, right, with his life, with his music. What role do you feel your culture, being of Haitian descent, helps out or pushes you to be such a hard worker?
I will say, well, first and foremost, they say that in general, they say West Indians, we always got like 4 or 5 jobs. So I'm just the epitome. I meet the stereotype. Let me
stop right there, Juliette. You know what's interesting about stereotypes? Because in my work, I do a lot of work around diversity and inclusion. And we talk about stereotypes. Mm-hmm. And when I tell people, it's not that stereotypes aren't true. They aren't the full truth. Right. And depending on who says it. Because if somebody else would have said that to you, you would have looked at them. And I know how my Haitian brothers and sisters like Africa, y'all suck your teeth
and then we grill you.
There we go. But the reality is there is a level of truth to that. And to hear you say that, some people are like, I can't believe that she said that. But the reality is when you're a part of a culture that it's about working, that we can never be enough. And then as a woman of color, always have to work harder and harder and harder. Yeah. That's why I asked a question about your culture and what role that played how hard you work. Because when I was researching you, even before because our stuff got lost in translation because my producer is sick, when I was looking at all the things, I'm like, man, this sister started very young in her work, in her desire to want to work, and this faith that you had in the love of gospel and scripture and people and humanity, and it oozes out in everything that you do. And that's why that question about who you are and where you came from, I feel always plays Because
Absolutely.
a lot of us deny that. Going back to Wycliffe, I'll never forget when he came to New York, because he's Haitian born, first generation. And he was saying how he hated being Haitian. He hated, when people made fun of him and all of that. But then as he got older, like my who have all these other cultures within us, we started to see there's a lot of value.
Right.
There's a lot of value. Let me own the beautiful
it was different for me, I will say. I think my experience, I validate the experiences of my Haitian brothers and sisters. I think I'm fortunate enough to have had a different experience. Growing up, I didn't have that many friends in school. And so when I went outside to play, there was no one to play with. The kids that were the nicest to me were the ESL kids that came from Haiti, right? So, and from there, they were so kind, they were so compassionate. So from there, I even picked up Haitian Creole, which I knew it. My parents, one of my first languages is French. But with practice, especially as a child, you just naturally pick up the habit. So people sometimes often think that I was born in Haiti, for how fluently I speak the language. And based on that, I was able to kind of just, I just ended up with my experiences, always bonding with people who were born straight in Haiti, and growing up, with my father as an educator. I grew to have a love for culture living in South Korea. That was another thing where I kind of went with an open mind, instead of kind of trying to push my Americanness on them. I found that a lot of the things they pointed out about me as an American didn't fit because I was Haitian. So things about like them assuming that I guess, European Americans, Americans of European descent, apparently they love a lot of bread, right? And so they would always say, "Oh, teacher, you like bread, right? You don't like rice." And I'm like, "Who told you that?" and I started to see that, there were a lot of similarities when it comes to respect for adults, honoring your community, honoring your culture, and eating a lot of rice. So with that, I've been able to kind of appreciate the Haitian culture, from very young, especially with my father as a history teacher. He's been very intentional about, helping me to appreciate myself for who I am, and my mother, but also appreciating other people for who they are, learning to have compassion for their experiences and how it makes them who they are, and even the ethic of working very hard. My father, he's also a preacher. And so my father would always travel with me, since I was a kid, to different conventions and weeks of prayer and stuff like that. And I would hear his sermons and his experiences of what he'd gone through, as an immigrant in this country. Interestingly enough, when we visited Old San Juan in Puerto Rico, there's actually a Haitian Galleria there. And at that spot, that is actually where my grandmother was a merchant.
Wow.
And my father gives stories about how my grandmother had to carry, is it a goat? They carried a goat. She carried a goat on her back with all of the goods that she had to sell. And she would travel with my father. And so things like that are so humbling. And so for me, a lot of my hard work, granted, there are other things that have fed the beast, that is Juliette the workaholic. However, the root of it, culturally, is just the thought that it would be a disservice to my parents to see how hard they worked, how hard my grandparents worked to make a life for their children, and then their children being my parents, how hard they worked, some of the humiliation that they've gone through, some of the challenges they'd endured to make a life for me, and for me to just sit back and do nothing. And so for me, I try my goal is to always approach life with humility. Of course, I can't speak to my humility. That's for other people too, but it's always my prayer, humble me, Lord, and allow me to understand people and allow me to be open to different opportunities to learn, to grow, to evolve. And that's really what pushes me every day. That a lot of that is my why, my parents, seeing, the sacrifices that they've made for me, and the sacrifices my grandparents have made. I'm also always compelled to think of my ancestors, one thing what really strikes me so much, especially seeing in today's day where we have like Black Lives Matter and people really fighting for justice, I can't help but to think of our ancestors who fought for freedom, you know, and I in my heart of hearts, I'm pretty sure a lot of them knew that they would not live to see that freedom. But the fight was worth it because they knew their children might see it or their children's children. Someone down their bloodline was going to see that freedom. And so because of it, the fight was enough. And so when I think of that, for me, I work very hard. And there are days where I work so hard and I'm like, am I ever going to achieve this goal? Or am I ever going to see this vision come to fruition? But the thing that I keep in my head is that there's a little Black girl, a little Black boy who's going to look at me, and that's going to give them enough hope to achieve that vision if I don't achieve it. And so my purpose and my hard work, it becomes bigger than me. It becomes about my community, and it becomes about those who look up to me. And even those who are older than me, who might see their younger selves in me and wished that their younger selves had that courage. And that makes it enough for them to say, hey, you know, I'm in my 30s, 40s, 50s, but I'm going to start now, you know? So that's kind of culturally where the hard work comes from.
So what's something that people seem to misunderstand about you? I hear you talk about culture. I hear you talk about your relationship with your God and your thoughts and giving back. And we have very similar connections. When you talked about Puerto Rico, I lived in Puerto Rico, Latin roots.
Oh, nice.
I actually saw tons of Haitians in Puerto Rico market. I was just in Aruba, tons of Haitians working at the market. So you have a very, very unique experience than most people. But what's something people seem to misunderstand about you, Juliette, that you want to just clear up?
Clarify? I think people think that it comes easy. It's crazy. I think people, I guess that's the misjudgment that comes where people may see the accolades and they may see the attention that I may get. For example, as a choir director, I noticed that, you know, kids, and honestly, in the beginning, I never cared to work with kids. That's my truth. At 15, I was like, no, I don't care. I don't have any kids. Why am I raising my blood pressure for a kid that I didn't conceive, right? But a lot of people, they see the outcome and they see the celebrations of the outcome. I think people fail to see the journey that it takes to get to the outcome. They also fail to see the pain that goes into achieving the outcome. And sometimes that's been enough to kind of humble me, because that allows me to kind of take a step back oftentimes and not fight certain battles, not enter into certain discussions, because I always have to realize that oftentimes we see the end, we don't see the means to the end.
Well, every year, Inc. magazine, Fast Company magazine, they're 1 and 2 magazines. Fast Company magazine, Julia, comes out with the list of some of the most productive people on the planet. This year, our sister, Serena Williams, is on the cover of the magazine. And what is an opportunity for them to share how productive they are and what they use to be productive? Because what I heard you say is that, you know, people think that it's easy, and we're going to tap into your business and your writing and the eyeglass company that you created. But before we jump into that, because they can find that online and they can Google and research that. But in line with this article that comes out every year, Pharrell was on the cover, LeBron James were on the cover, tons of people on the cover of this magazine. What are the best resources that have helped you along the way to be productive, from starting a company, writing a book, lecturing, traveling across the country? Help my listeners know, or provide my listeners with some tools that you use or resources that help you along the way to stay organized, to stay focused, to stay fit, to stay healthy, to make sure you don't put your hands on nobody's kids, to make sure you in Creole and Spanish and Italian and Jamaican and English and what have you. What are some of those resources to help you along?
Well, in terms of just organization, I think writing things down or just having things written down helps a lot. I know with my eyeglasses company, I quote a biblical verse, Habakkuk 2, verse 2 through 3, that first begins with write the vision and make it plain. So I'm very big on writing things down. You have to see things. And that really helps with productivity. So things that I use, for example, a Trello board, which is a task management or project management board. And I literally just kind of jot down all the things I have to do. I often put things in my calendar. I do have a journal where I actually have 1,010 journals, and they all serve their purpose, but that's where I often jot down, the things I have to do for the day or the goals I want to achieve. So that's something, writing things down is good because it allows you to see it, right? It's no longer in your head anymore. It's on paper. And honestly, depending on the day, the week, the month, the year, something different might be working the most for me, but I like to have them all. So that's that. Setting goals, that also helps us to be productive. Set your overall goals. Look at the small milestones that will help you achieve those goals, and then write out the specific actions that you need to implement to achieve the milestones and essentially the goals. Celebrate the milestones, not saying, throw a party every day or every week, but at least validate the fact that you accomplished something, right? And I think that's the challenge, where we set these big, long goals and they seem so far away. And then we can't celebrate the little things. I actually recently got my candidacy officially as a doctoral candidate.
Yeah.
Thank you. But, as an example, what I did, this was, two going on 3 years ago, when I first started the doctoral program, I had a Trello board, and I took, the page that lists all the curriculum and all the courses I need to take. And I mapped out all 3 to 4 years, literally, on a Trello board. And I had little tickets that literally from week 1 to week 10, because when I was doing my bachelor's and my master's, I was used to a 6-week academic period. Moving to 10 weeks is hard, because after that 6 weeks, for me, I'm like, oh, I'm done. And I'm not. I got 4 more to go. But, I had tickets that listed the 10 weeks. So every week that I completed a week, I marked off that week as complete. I had checklists within each Trello board. I also had different milestones throughout my doctoral journey. So when I completed my core courses, when I completed my specialization courses, when I completed my concentration courses, when I completed my doctoral exam, and now I'm at the dissertation phase, and I'm even mapping that out. And so in 2018, when I started, I'm looking at this like, what did I get myself into? But now that I look back, I'm so grateful that I did that, because it helped me to literally just stay on track. It really helped with the productivity. On the days that I didn't feel like doing it, I had to go back to that Trello board and see all I completed, and then see what was left. And when you see that, even if you completed one little task, looking at all that's left does not seem so bad, because you know that you accomplished one thing, and that's enough to carry you to accomplish the next thing. And that next thing helps you accomplish the next. And here I am 3 years later with a 4.0 GPA, 2 Honor Society nominations, and my doctoral candidacy, 1 year away from graduation, God willing.
Are doing your thing. We wish you much success. I know the process. I've been down that road. You're a doctoral student. You're a CEO of a company that equips students and professionals and business owners to make their life easier. You started this wooden eyewear company.
Yeah.
What's one thing you wish you had known when you began your business journey to create these business? And then talk to us about this eyewear collection and the publishing company. But before that, what's one thing you wish you had known before you began this journey?
It's actually 4 companies. One of them I haven't mentioned, but and to your interest, it's a Haitian Creole learning management system, language learning management system. However, one thing I did wish I'd known was that you don't have to rush yourself. I think in the beginning, I knew that it was hard work, because I'd been working with small business owners and business formations and so on. And so I knew that it took work. and I knew how hard I worked, so I didn't care for it. I kind of got thrown into it in a way. But the one thing I did know is that when I knew I was going to start a business, it was almost like I was in a rush. And I think that's one thing that a lot of us entrepreneurs or professionals even, we fail to keep in mind. You got to trust the process, whether it's school, whether it's work, whether it's life, whether it's your company, you got to trust the process. And that's something, you know, I really wish that I'd known, understood. I'd known in different aspects of my life, but not necessarily the business.
So talk about business. Tell us about these 4 companies that you've actually started.
Okay, so from the top, so JUNURI, as I mentioned before, I'd never cared to own my own business. I knew it was a lot of work. Interestingly enough, this week, I kind of was like, what was life like before I was owning companies? And the IRS had my social security number associated with all these companies. But I really never cared to own a company. Back in 2017, my best friend of almost 20 years, he committed suicide. And thank you. And it was really, really rough. And you know, death is hard enough, but when you lose someone by suicide, that hits you differently. It really hits you differently. And I kind of was left just trying to rethink what I was kind of lost. Like I didn't know what I was supposed to do. Like, how do I process this? How does life work going forward? Right? Because you see how life is so fragile. How does it work now? And I kind of was in a place where I was just trying to redefine my purpose. Like, what do I do? And, you know, at the time I was a children's choir director. I was actually directing 4 choirs, 3 in New York, 1 in Maryland. And I was also tutoring through an agency. And I remember just brainstorming with my business partner, who's also the co-founder of Voisin, the Haitian Creole Learning Management System. And I remember us just bouncing ideas off of each other based off all of the things that I had going on at the time. And he said, sis, I'm going to build a website for you. And I was like, no, you're not. And he's like, yes, I am. And I don't like people to tell me what to do. So I'm like, let me think about it. If I do it, I'm going to say we're doing it. I don't want nobody to tell me what to do, but I'll think about it. And at that time, I must also mention, I was on a fast. I was on a 10-day fast going out to the end of the year. And it was for a very trivial reason. It was me asking God for stuff I had no business asking him for. But
some of the prayers that we have don't come true. I tell people that all the time.
Right.
Aren't you glad? Like,
Right.
people, they pray for these relationships, they pray for things, and they like, so we have to be mindful of some of those things. And I'm so glad that you share, like, I shouldn't even ask for.
Right. I knew the answer, but I don't even know what I was expecting, but I knew that I needed time to just fast and talk to God. But out of that fast, God was just giving me different answers. And so from speaking to my business partner, I remember spending time with one of my students' families for the holidays, who become family for myself. And they were like, Juliette, you have all of these things you're doing. You tutor, you teach, you know, and the tutoring experience you give, it's not like the normal just help kids with their homework. It's more than that. You know, you mentor these kids, you coach them, you help people, you know, you help your friends with their resumes, finding jobs. You have all of these skills. You're a choir director. There's so much knowledge that you have to offer. Why not use that and just put it under your own company? Why are you going through an agency? And so it kind of had me thinking. And at that time, my business partner and I were discussing Voisin as well. So they were like, really, you need to think about how you can take your purpose and really put it into full drive. And it was out of that fast that, you know, I felt comforted, and God was like, you know what, you know, I'm calling you. And actually it was an answer to prayer, but I'm calling you to really impact and share your gift, your triumph, your pain, your struggle with the world. And that's what formed JUNURI. In South Korea, actually, I was given the name Nuri, Na Nuri, now as the family name, and Nuri as the first name. And it comes from the Korean verb nanuda, which means to share. And so my pastor, who was also the director of the school I taught at, he'd given me that name and told me that he was commissioning me to share my gift wherever I went. And so I remember praying to God and saying, I want you to use me to touch people from different backgrounds and different cultures. I know what it meant. I just knew that I was no longer going to do law school. My Haitian parents were not about to have a child that was going to become a lawyer. And I know that's tough for a Haitian parent because they like doctors, lawyers, nurses, and engineers.
Sound like my Nigerian.
Right. But, at that point, I didn't even know what it meant, but that was back in 2013. And now in 2017, going into 2018, it was like that purpose was being reiterated to me. So I combined my Korean name Nuri with my government name Juliette to make JUNURI. So that's what formed JUNURI. And, we offer academic and professional development. That went on for some time. And then I believe it was by the end, and in 2018, I was doing this talk show with my friends, this Facebook talk show, where, we speak to young people just about topics that impact young Christians. That often are considered taboo in the church, and creating a safe space for them to discuss them. And someone was watching the show one day and they approached me and they were like, have you ever thought of writing a memoir? And I was like, no. But, we started the preliminary talks about it. And I said, you know what, I have a lot going on. Let me get back to you. And I think by the end of 2018, I remember, just a thought popped up and I was like, oh my goodness, I need to call this person and reach out to them and, see how we can get the process started. And I remember a voice saying, chill out. You don't even know your testimony. So I kind of froze, like, what was that? And then the voice said, that is not the person who's going to share your story. And I'm a woman of my word. So I know that when I promise someone something, I always like to deliver. But at this point, it's like, okay, so why was it this person coming to me? And I realized that they were just planting the seed. They were used as a vessel to plant the seed. But I really didn't try to think much into it until I can't make it up. 2019 started and all hell broke loose. And the testimony that I didn't know about, that started to really come to fruition itself. And it was like, I almost felt like a rubber band where I was just being stretched and stretched and stretched and stretched. And every time like I was ready to kind of throw in the towel, God came through and was like, nope, you're not done. get back out there. And so in understanding that purpose, I kept the thought in mind that my story needed to be shared. I just didn't know how. Because I know my testimony is quite heavy within of itself. So I'm here like, okay, God, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to do anything? It was also in 2019 that, I started getting more into taking on book editing clients. And those clients were absolutely enjoying their writing experience. And so my birthday approached November 2019. And I think it was like about a month or two before I was having a conversation with one of my mentees. And we were talking about just all the stuff that we wish we knew about college, going into college. And that's when the light bulb went off. I was like, that's it. The gems that I wish I'd known going into college. And studying industrial and organizational psychology in my doctoral program put everything into a very different perspective. Because even though I study individuals and organizations, psychology really looks at behaviors, people's attitudes, how they think, how they perceive things, and how we can impact that. And so I was able to look at my academic experience through a completely different lens. And, I just told like a couple of people, literally like just like one or two or three people. I was like, I think I'm publishing a book for my birthday. And they're like, what? Oh my gosh, that's crazy. How much did you write? And I was like, I don't know that I've written much. And literally in 3 weeks, I put pen to paper and I wrote out Sharing My Lens, the college experience. And that's what actually birthed JUNURI Publishing, because this was me actually running my book through my whole process, through the editing, the publishing, and everything. And that's how JUNURI Publishing started. Now for NURILENS, I like to collect things.
Mm-hmm.
I collect everything. When I like something, I have to have a lot of it. It's very weird. That doesn't mean I spend money on like too many things, but the few things that I like, for example, if I see a shirt that's comfortable, I'm gonna get it in every color. And it was the same for glasses. So in Korea, I found out I can get glasses for cheap. I'm as blind as a bat. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna get as many glasses as I can. So I got them in different colors, different shapes, different sizes, got back to the United States, and I found myself just buying just all types of glasses. So I had a collection of maybe 15 to 20 pairs. I matched them with outfits, had them going with shoes, with bags, with brooches. I mean, I had a whole thing going on. And when I started JUNURI, one of the things I prayed and told God lightly and casually is the next pair of glasses I buy is going to be one that I design. I low-key was joking. But by 2019, I discovered that gamers, they actually wear blue light blocking glasses because they spend so many hours in front of the TV, not the TV, the computer. And so that kind of had me thinking, I'm like, wait, but I know other people who do, professionals and students. JUNURI serves professionals and students. We might be onto something here. And, you know, that ended up leading to me eventually finding labs and having conversations about like the different lenses and so on and so forth. And then that led to me putting pen to paper. That led to me wanting to just do something different and saying, hey, instead of being, you know, using the normal, you know, matte or acetate material, plastic material, I'm gonna try wood. I'm gonna try some wood and see how people like the wood. And I mean, the rest is history. You know, wood, you know, even researching the meaning of wood biblically and spiritually, it means, it signifies knowledge. It signifies growth. It signifies wisdom, like a tree, right? That's deeply rooted and grows. And so that kind of became the basis for seeing through the lens of your purpose, right? Potential people don't achieve because that's often man given, right? That's why they say you don't date people for their potential. You can say someone has the potential, I don't know, to be, I had the potential to be a lawyer, and look at us in 2020, right? I didn't achieve that potential. However, you know, my purpose to educate, my purpose to inspire, my purpose to uplift and empower people never changed. And so with NURILENS, that became the significance, having a wooden collection that really encourages people to see through the lens of their purpose and really stick on the path, no matter how far that goal or their dreams and aspirations may seem far away. So
but all the things that you've done, from the book, the publishing company, the speaking engagement, and also creating an eyewear company, what has been your biggest failure to date, and what did you learn from it?
My biggest failure. My biggest failure has been trying to do it all by myself. And this is actually the first, I think it's like one of the first failures I'm ever admitting, because I believe that we fail when we give up, right? Not when we fall. But I think one of those biggest ones were not delegating. I love to learn. And my friends and family will tell you, I think a lot of them are tired about the fact that I'm in school again. And they've all already said, yeah, Juliette's about to be in school again. We don't know for what.
Nobody can pay me to stay in school.
Right.
I mean, when you think about it, you are spending money. When you talk about the universal school that we're in, we are in school forever, and we are spending just as much money. If you break it down, Juliette, you break it down, we spend just as much money in an academic setting than we would in a universal setting.
Yeah.
How much time we spend on people, how much money we throw, and how
energy.
much energy that we put out there. And the reason why I ask you about failure, because one of the things that I've been learning over and over again, I had mentors, and they would always say failure is not an option. Failure is not always an option. And I started to say it and repeat it. But then as I got older and wiser and I started to engage with other thinkers, it was like, no, failure is not an option. It's giving up. It's not.
That's right.
Failure teaches you some of the most valuable lessons. It is the greatest teacher. And I remember when, what is his name? Tavis Smiley wrote this book about failure about 10 years ago, some of the biggest failures. It really opened up my eyes. And so as we get older in our work, and I'm not talking about age and in our calling, is to embrace that, not to stay in it, but to embrace it
above it. Yep.
Or to move on and learn from it, because we are teaching our children.
Right.
No, it's about not giving up.
Don't give up, and you keep going. Right. And I know for me, I think because I love to learn so much, I knew too much for my own good. I think that's what it was. And so, especially as going to business school, I learned everything about business. I worked in a company where we formed businesses. So there was a lot that I knew. And I was a person, once you gave me just a little seed, it was enough for me to do so much research. I'm talking like pulling empirical research to Google and blogs, right? Pulling it all and figuring it out myself. So I've been my own attorney, my own accountant, my own financial, like it was all of it. And I realized that, especially when you're owning a company, not learning to yield to another's expertise can be very dangerous, because it limits the space that you have to be creative. It limits the space that you have to even grow at a certain point, because eventually you plateau and you're not growing. And so that's something I've learned, and I've come to terms with that. You know, my mentors constantly hold me accountable for that, you know, and it's something that they constantly remind me of. You know, when I find that I'm burning out, more than likely it's because I'm doing everything. And I'm a person who doesn't like to depend on people as well. So now I'm really learning to navigate through learning to trust people, because I acknowledge another person's expertise. That's something easy for me. But to leave myself to their discretion, that's something I'm learning to do and to delegate, so that I'm able to creatively focus on other things.
So at the end of the day, when this chapter is done, what impact do you want to have on the world?
Honestly, I just want to be a person who showed kindness and compassion and grace. This world, it is a cruel place. And I like to believe that, especially in my studies, I believe that human beings are innately good. We are born good. No child learns to be hateful. No child learns to be racist. No child learns to be biased or mean. No child is no child learns. No child is born that way. It's learned behavior. And unfortunately, our traumas, whether it's historically or our environment, whatever it is, our traumas, our experiences, and so on and so forth, those often shape our vantage points and sometimes cause us to make decisions that are contrary to who we truly can be, right? So I try my best, I think, especially, you know, with my experiences, learning from them. I try my best that in everything I do, I try to be a person who offers grace, compassion, and kindness. Even in my purpose as an educator, even with the businesses, you know, I like to be remembered as someone who was just kind and compassionate. I'm not perfect. I'm not Jesus, and I'm not perfect. But you know, it's something I strive. I wake up every day, and it's something I strive to be. And that's really the impact I want to have on this world. You know, I could have all the businesses that I want, make all the money that I want, get all the degrees that I want. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I bleed red like everybody else, and I'm human like everybody else. And so I just choose, my choice is to wake up every day and treat people like humans. And in everything I do, remember people's humanity. So, yeah.
Well, how can my listeners get in contact with you if they want to purchase your book, if they want to pick up some of the lenses, or if they just want to engage with you? What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
You can visit, they can visit my website, Juliette Nuri Nelson. Juliette is spelled Juliette, two T's and an E, not one T. Nuri is spelled N as in Nancy, URI, Nelson, NELSON, JulietteNuriNelson.com. That can link them to all of my websites for the other companies. I'm also on LinkedIn if there are any professionals who want to connect with me on LinkedIn and network. On Instagram, and also my Facebook page. Those are also the with the name Juliette Nuri Nelson. So, my book also is on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple iBooks, and Kobo Books, I believe. So that also is linked on my website. So.
We want to encourage you to go out to pick up all of her products, engage her. Julia, before you leave, the second part of the show is called the Super Bomb Questions and is brought to us by Mountain Made. And it's an opportunity for me to ask you some different questions. However, the difference between part one and part two is I need you to answer these questions as quickly as possible. You ready?
Okay.
All right, here we go. What's your favorite word?
Onomatopoeia.
Took us back to old language arts class. What's your favorite quote, scripture verse, Bible verse, or a lyric to a song?
Quote, scripture, Bible verse. Be yourself, everyone else is taken.
What's your superpower?
My superpower? I actually love hard.
What's your spirit animal?
My spirit animal? I'd say a lion.
What brings you to tears of joy?
Tears of joy? Seeing my parents.
What moves you to tears of sorrow?
Tears of sorrow? Trauma.
What do you wish
Seeing people go through trauma.
What do you wish you had more time to do?
Sleep.
What is the book or books you've given most as a gift and why?
My book, because I wrote it.
Like, what's your morning routine? After you do all the biological things, what's your morning routine like?
My morning routine, devotion and meditation. Devotion, meditation, and work.
What guides your heart?
God.
How do you express gratitude with those you love?
Words of affirmation.
If you want, go ahead, finish.
Words of affirmation, and if we weren't in this pandemic, hugs.
If you were in the Mrs. America talent competition, Juliette Nelson, what would your talent be?
Speaking 6 languages.
Hey, well, Juliette, I appreciate you hanging out with me. It's been a pleasure and a joy, my Haitian sister. I love and honor everything that you do, and I wish you much success in everything that you do. You know, thank you and welcome to that world, that Dr. Nelson. Dr. Nelson, we welcome you into the world, and thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thank you for having me.
And I also want to thank my engineer, Alexander Blanc, who also is Haitian. Cannot do without you, brother. My producer, Nicole Klempaka. We need you. We need you. We need you. Get better. Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and stop being stingy and share me with all of your friends. If you want to know more about me, you can go to drdrlds.com, drdrlds.com. And it's always believed that something wonderful is about to happen and that some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess, but not you, because you're listening to Sound Bombing. And thanks for tuning in, and go out and do something for someone other than yourself today. Peace.
The Super Bomb questions are brought to you by Mountain Made CBD. Mountain Made is changing the CBD game by offering a line of high-dose CBD tablets at an affordable price. Their products are THC-free and third-party tested for accuracy, cleanliness, and potency. Their products, which ship nationwide, include Build for CBD saturation, Boost for precision titration, and Recover for rest and rehab. With 9 years experience in hemp and fitness, Mountain Made's founders are focused on creating a quality product to help those who live an activated lifestyle. Check out mountainmade.life. Again, that's mountainmade.life to find out more about how their products can help you crush life. Remember, their products ship nationwide. Go check out their website today and follow them on social media at Mountain Made. That's the @ MNTMADE. Our staff at Sound Balming uses Build before a morning workout, which helps to push our bodies to a whole new level on a daily basis. Try Build, try Boost, try Recover. Our staff is using these products to enhance our active lifestyle naturally, and we are crushing life with Mountain Made CBD, and you can too. Start today by going to mountainmade.life and ordering Build, Boost, Recover, or the multitude of other products that they have which will enhance your lifestyle. I promise you, you won't regret it.